Hello, before I get into the heart of the matter, I just wanted to say that I found this particular case study very intriguing. It definitely caught my attention because as a result of living in Massachusetts and having many relatives in the greater Boston area, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center is pretty much the go-to place for us when one of our family members becomes ill, especially when it is my grandmother. Um, and I have to say that we really have been nothing but impressed with the quality of care that she's received during her numerous stays and the care and compassion that they showed the family as well. Actually, there was a time or two that my grandmother would joke that it was like staying in a fancy hotel but with better service. So again, it really caught my attention when we were asked to analyze this case. Obviously it is true, but if it was anyone else telling me that this medical center almost ceased to exist, I would immediately question them. Mainly because we've had such a positive experience there time and again. And to be quite honest, I was unaware that they were two separate entities at one time. Anywho, according to the case study materials, Beth Israel and the Deaconess were two vastly different hospitals. That were acquired by Care Group, a parent company that also owned various other medical centers or hospitals in the greater Boston area. Beth Israel, which had the Harvard affiliation, prided itself on their academic and medical research opportunities, being a teaching hospital, and being able to provide a very high quality of care to their patients, no matter how many focuses they had. Whereas the Deaconess was known for its surgical services and was run in a more business-like manner. Business first, patients almost second. And I think it's important to note that these two hospitals were the two largest centers, medical centers that Care Group acquired. And matter of fact, in 1996, Care Group went ahead and merged the two hospitals in order to create what we now refer to as Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Unfortunately, almost immediately after the merger went through, the hospital began to lose money, ranging anywhere from $10 to $40 million a year, which, when you think about it, is quite a bit of money, even for a medical center, especially when it is of a non-profit status. So from 1996 to 2000 and early 2001, they were losing money. There was no gain. So they were faltering, and they were faltering to an extent where something had to give. So in 2001, Beth Israel and care, other Care Group administrators on the board, asked the current CEO to step down because nothing was getting done. The financial crisis was getting even greater, and while they're considered a nonprofit, there's no other way to say it, but, they weren't turning a profit. So it was then that the search began, and while there were many candidates, there was one man in particular that everyone thought that was, right for the job. And they were right. His name was Paul Levy. He he went into a meeting with the search committee. He didn't necessarily want the job to begin with, but he knew he could do it. So he figured he'd go for it. And he pretty much laid out all his cards on the table at that time. So in November of 2001, the first meeting, he went in and they stated his case and listened to theirs, and he pretty much told them, unless I cannot be in the unless I can be in the job for the first week of January, that he wasn't interested. And he went on to explain that he wouldn't have been interested because it indicated a major governance problem, which is pretty much, what was going on in the first place. They had all these big ideas and they knew that they were in trouble financially, quality of care wise, and so on, but nothing was getting done. So it was very important that he went in there and was like, this is what I need from you so I can help turn this mess around. I'm not trying to say that the previous board had no intention to turn this crisis into a successful turnaround. In the end, they held meetings. They they came up with ideas. They consulted people. They consulted staff. They consulted outside groups. They had outside groups come in and advise them on what to do. It just was their inaction, their to get things done that spoke a lot. It was, they had all these great ideas, but yet they couldn't implement them. Non-implementation is, maybe even worse than not having the idea to begin with. So again, Paul Levy comes around in November of 2001, lays out all his cards. He wanted to be in there for the first week of January. Why? The two reasons. It indicated that they had major governance problems, as I said before, and he wanted to be in there before the Hunter report came out, which would have come out in mid-January that year, and he wanted to be there so he could get ahead of it, so he could present a framework beforehand that was their idea, a framework that was going to be used to turn Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center into a profitable medical center once again. But it was interesting that the search committee didn't jump on Levy's offer, or on Levy for that matter, to hire him. He actually wasn't hired and announced as president and CEO of Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center until the 7th of January 2002. And that was after yet another meeting in December, in December of 2001, that he was like, this is it. You either give me the job or I'm out. Let's get going. And again, here are some here are my preconditions, and to those preconditions, he added the fact that, the board needed to get out of the way, out of the day-to-day operation of the hospital, that it was too big, that it needed to be shrunk. The optimum board in his eyes was 15 to 18 members rather than, twice that amount. And of course, if they couldn't get him in by the first of the month, that he really wasn't interested. But excuse me, it happened, and he took the job, and he immediately got to work. On his first day, he took on a positive outlook. He emailed all of his employees and, introduced himself, made it known that the threat was real and layoffs were about to come, and, that he was going to establish, or rather offer, an open administration where his employees, no matter at what level, could come to him with questions, concerns, advice on matters. He actually made it very well known that, the board, while they were to step out of the day-to-day operation, also had to consult him before they went and talked to, whether it be a nurse or a doctor or another member of the staff. And he was going to let anyone else in a leadership position know that too. He took the job and he made himself present. And I think that's something that we have to take as one of the very first lessons of this merger. And why his turnaround worked so well. He made himself present. The administration was open. There was no fear of retribution. There was, it began to feel, more comfortable of an atmosphere. So, like, it was a way to ensure a highly motivated group of medical professionals. And again, to reiterate that this threat is real. They could all lose their jobs. I think, too, one of the pitfalls of that, of the merger is that when it came apparent that Care Group did something vastly different from other parent companies. For example, Partners is another big company that owns a couple of the larger established hospitals in the Boston area, such as Mass General and Brigham and Women's. And one thing they did different is they kept these the two largest hospitals separate, unlike Care Group, who merged Beth Israel and the Deaconess. So Partners, honestly, like Paul Levy, had a clear sense of direction, whereas Care Group did not. Or maybe they thought they did, and then their implementation just went downhill. So there's many factors that were involved. Besides that, I mean, generally the community of hospitals that joined Care Group were weaker to begin with than other hospitals that joined Partners. So it was going to take time, and not one solution always fits all, which is why Levy really chose to get out in front of the excuse me, the Hunter report on the hospital's, about status, they, which, he posted to the internet, making it available to all of his employees. And I think that was great because, again, it established an honest, open trust, which had been lacking for the past 3, 4 years, maybe even more. And I think, once again, it has to go to, you have to give it to Paul Levy that because he had this open administration, because he was willing to listen to his employees' concerns and their needs, he was able to do what needed to be done because he had partners. He had people who were willing to implement his ideas throughout the hospital. So, there was no contingency plan. What he did worked. So before I let you go, I just suppose we should review the fact that, it's what should have been done in the first place during this merger, and there needs to, for any merger for that matter, whether that be for a public or private organization, nonprofit, for-profit, you should have an open line of communication. You should have a clear path, something that, you can implement, that you know what you want to do, when you want to do it, and you need to have the support. Like Paul Levy, he had the support of the Attorney General, the board of Care Group, and Beth Israel, and his staff, which was probably the most important. So again, you can't have a lack of process and implementation, especially in this area, and you really just need communication, open lines of communications on all fronts with all parties involved, which was probably, if you compared this case study to the previous case study that we did, was the biggest difference. The engineers working on the Challenger in Columbia didn't have those open lines of communications with the higher ups, and therefore it led to disaster, which we nearly saw here in a different respect, but was able to be turned around because something was done. I guess that's it. Thank you for this semester, and I hope to taking more classes with you.